Yeah, hello, welcome. My name is Fiona Lyon, and I am representing the executive committee of the Urban Design Panel today. And I'm excited to introduce our awesome panel presentation on the Canton Grill Redevelopment Project. The Urban Design Panel, for anyone that's not aware or joining for the first time, is sponsored jointly by the American Institute of Architects, the American Planning Association, and the American Society of Landscape Architects. And it's composed of professionals from those three organizations with a shared interest in urban design. The AIA has previously hosted this event in person at the Center for Architecture in Portland, but now generously offers this monthly Zoom meeting until further notice. In addition to monthly email announcements, our panel presentations can be found, all of the recordings on our AIA Oregon event calendar and our Vimeo page, as well as their weekly Thursdays at 3 newsletters. We encourage everyone to sign up for information about future presentations. We also encourage you to share any interesting future panel presentation topics or ideas you might have with Kathy. Kathy just dropped her email in the chat. Thank you, Kathy. Just a note, these presentations are recorded and they will be made available on the AIA website as a Vimeo file. We will also share that link in the chat as well. So today's overview, we got a presentation about 35 minutes or so, and that will be followed by a Q&A session. For the Q&A, we would ask that you pose your questions in the chat box. Jeremy and I will kind of field those questions and present them to Travis, our presenter. And let's see, what else do I have to note? I want to say a huge kudos to one of our urban design panel members, Erin. She has gotten an AICP certification maintenance credit for today's presentation. So if you need that number, the event number will be in the chat. Hopefully that's helpful. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Travis Dang. Travis is with SERA Architects. He is super passionate and thoughtful about placemaking and creating vibrant communities, and is going to share an overview of the Canton Grill Redevelopment Project. For anyone unaware, this is a project in collaboration with APANO, the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. The site has a kind of long-standing significance in the community, and he's going to really tell us about the redevelopment project that's going on. So with that, I'm going to share the mic with Travis. Travis, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Super excited to share with you all the work that we've been doing. We've been working with APANO on this site since summer of last year, so it's gone by really quick. I can't believe a year has gone by. So let's see. This I found this logo from the Canton Grill. I think this is one of their original ones. So this might be like an 80-year-old graphic, which is kind of amazing. Before I dive in, just a little bit about us, SERA Architects. This is a view of our beautiful atrium right here in the Galleria in downtown. We're about 100 design professionals. We're an interdisciplinary firm of architects, interior designers, urban planners, and designers, and we have sustainability resources in-house as well. We do have a Bay Area presence in Oakland. We're 100% employee owned, and we are just labeled. So these are our values. We exist to make people's daily lives, insert your adjective. And as designers, we feel like we have the agency to do this and make our built environment a better place. So here is a view of the center of the Jade District. If you're not familiar with Portland, the Jade District is out in Southeast Portland, and this is what I call the center, is 82nd Division, very important corner here. And so the reason I bring this up is Canton Grill, what we're going to present today, really only exists in the fabric of kind of the work that APANO has been doing over the last 10 years. And with APANO being a place-based community organization, it was really important for them when they set their roots here and to understand the kind of community that they were doing this work for. So as you may know, the Jade District is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Portland, but it very much is a Pan-Asian community. You can't go more than a block before you see signs for a Chinese restaurant, grocery store, Vietnamese restaurant. So there's quite a bit of those kind of cultural markers in this part of town. And there's quite a bit of other communities that people may not be aware of, kind of African immigrant communities or Latinx communities, and then also like Russian speaking communities out here too. So what I have in this view is the yellow building is a 4-story affordable housing project called Orchards of 82nd that we did with Rose CDC. And this came out of the Jade District Visioning Project in 2014.
Hold on a second. It's not that.
Sorry, they're muted now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Jade District Visioning Project was really important because at that time, this was when kind of gentrification and displacement was kind of creeping into this part of Southeast Portland and other parts of the city as well. 82nd was still under ODOT jurisdiction, and there were pretty high profile pedestrian and automobile collisions. And so there's just this sense that something positive needed to be done. And so APANO took the initiative to do this big community engagement process and to seek what the pain points were from the community and what they wanted for a kind of positive vision for the future. And what they were able to get out of that was actually the Jade Night Market, which is going strong. We'll have one coming up in the summer. Some sort of community center or development on this corner, and just overall like more equitable and more mixed use kind of development in the district. So in this district, APANO really felt like each parcel in this district was really precious, and faced with gentrification and their values in anti-displacement, they're left with like two options. How do you deal with gentrification? Do you let it kind of pass through, or do you try to keep the social capital here in this neighborhood? And so the Canton Grill is kind of an example of APANO really fighting to keep the social capital here and build into this district. So I pulled this from an old menu, actually, from the Canton Grill. And so here's the Willamette River, downtown is here, and the Canton Grill is right here, 82nd and Division. This is an old photo of the restaurant from 1985. You can sort of see where 82nd got its roots as a kind of cruising highway, not a single street tree to be found. And as we dove into this project, kind of exploring the artifacts and the materials that were left over, there's quite a bit of history and patina and the story that we wanted to capture. There's just this ambience and this experience of the restaurant that I don't think would be easy to recreate. So we're going to try to see if we can keep some of this for the future project. But I only got to go to this restaurant once, and the more I kind of work on this, the more I regretted not being able to go to this restaurant more. Sorry, I skipped over this. So the restaurant was was established in 1944, and it stayed in the family all the way till 2022. And so it was a beloved icon and landmark for Southeast Portland. And yeah, just working on this, you just got the sense that the people who patronize this restaurant, this was a place that they could become regulars, and this was a very much a third place they um, that was very memorable for them and passed through for generations in the family. Quite a bit of iconography that is iconic for this restaurant, which will come up later. A collection of the different menus through the life of the project. This on the far left was one of their first, and it looks like a kind of Italian chef mixing a bowl of pasta. And you sort of see these like mid-century kind of looks. And then as you get further and further, you start to see a little bit more of that Asian and Chinese influence. Here's a snip of a menu where you could get the pork chow mein for $1. You can get a combination meal for less than $3. And when we were doing one of the site visits, we found this old cocktail recipe book that has the Honolulu cocktail, which they were famous for. So a bunch of different juices and gin, if you were wondering. So yeah, just digging through all the material, you really got the sense that this was a joyful place, a place where people wanted to gather and celebrate. And it genuinely looked like everybody was having a good time. So with APANO and the project team and the community too, we just knew that to do this project justice, we had to be able to capture that sense of memory and the love that people had for this restaurant. We needed to be able to capture that and bring that forward with whatever project we were going to do to redevelop. So zooming back out, this is a picture of the Jade District. So here's Division 82nd. The Canton Grill site is here. And we just wanted to illustrate just how diverse and dense the Jade District is with the different amenities that are around. Quite a bit of Vietnamese and Chinese restaurants, grocery stores. If I listed every single one, this would be way too unreadable. Fubon, the iconic Asian grocery store just to the south, it would be less than a 5-minute walk from Canton Grill. If anybody needs a restaurant recommendation, just let me know. I can give you something. Some early site analysis that we did for the project. The site is perched up on a little bit of a hill before it slopes down as you move south. So it's going to get great sun exposure. As we talked about the project, the fact that 82nd is just so loud, just could not, we couldn't avoid that in any of our conversations. That always dominated. So just 82nd is just such a loud place. And so that was always going to be a challenge for us to design for, especially with the APANO wanting this project to be kind of a walkable, kind of vibrant mixed use project. So that was just something that that always came up. And with Division, we have the FX2 line, and the 72 line going north-south is the busiest bus route in the city. So not only did we look at the current site context, but we kind of thought about, we anticipated the future context. We all knew how big of an impact the Division improvements and the new FX line, the FX2 line had on Division with the medians and all of those things. So we put this out there just to not discount the fact that with the new 82nd improvements and the new FX line coming, you know, that could really change the character of 82nd, which is a civic corridor. And on either side of 82nd, our site included is zone CM2. So quite a bit of density could be introduced over the course of the future. Just to the east of our frontage, it transitions to residential pretty quickly. With the new proposed Peabot Street improvements, it actually will be a bit of a challenge to get here by car, which is kind of interesting. Not really a great direct way if you're on 82nd, unless you're coming up from the south. And if you're coming from the east, you actually have to plan ahead and turn earlier and to be able to get to our site. I think ironically, it'll be a little bit easier to get to the site by bus and by walking. Biking is a little trickier with not all the streets being connected out in this part of town. Some of the roads are unimproved, and so I'm looking forward to the new crossings and intersection improvements that'll help improve the bike access. So some site photos of our site as it stands. Some murals were put on in place. And then this photo is a little bit up to date. I think that they've actually put in some of the new curbs and street corners here. This views 82nd and Clinton looking north, just kind of illustrating how narrow the sidewalk is here, just 7 or 8 feet. So there's a big opportunity to widen that and create a much more walkable frontage. And then, yeah, past our east frontage, our east property line transitions to residential. And just diving into our process, we started with a big goal setting workshop. APANO very much values consensus building with their constituents and stakeholders. So we brought in what they call their friends and family of APANO. So not only the project team, but the members of their board, some staff members, and the Jade District steering committee. And we brought this tool that we use at SERA that we call the Project Compass. And we array along the compass all the different pertinent topics that might have to do with sustainable development, sustainable design. So I'll walk you through that really quickly. So in the yellow is the human health and well-being aspects. So like biophilia, air quality, safety and security, mental health and well-being, connection to nature, those kinds of things. Below in the green are the placemaking ideas. And specifically to APANO, we, with getting their input, we added a couple more to this. We added cultural placemaking, identity and belonging, honoring historic legacy. And then lastly, in the blue, resource management is kind of your more straightforward sustainability topics. So energy and water usage, and in this case, which got a lot of dots, were the financial advancement, not only for the project, but for the community. And so at the center of the compass is where we establish what we call the market standard, which would be like kind of the minimum performance of any of these topics. And then as you go further out in the compass, you would expect higher performance. At the furthest edge would be the highest performance. So when we brought this out, we had the whole group go up and place a dot. They all had 3 dots. And then we gave them a superstar, which let any minority voices be able to contribute an idea if they weren't all triangulating in the same spot. But we were pleasantly surprised or just pleased that there was quite a bit of alignment and consensus with things like connection to nature, safety and security. So a lot of interest in resident health and well-being. There was a lot of excitement for cultural placemaking, identity and belonging, and honoring the historic legacy. So a lot of things that we were anticipating would be really important for this project. And then there was quite a bit of discussion for the financial advancement and the community financial impact. So that was like a short way of saying, anti-displacement, and how do we deal with taking care of the community as well. And so we synthesized those into these three guiding principles: cultural placemaking, economic empowerment, nourishment, and well-being, and developed this cultural charter, which was very helpful through the life of the project to help guide us through some tricky decision points and where to prioritize. Then next, we kind of thought about the different programs that APANO wanted to study for the site. So housing, community spaces, commercial spaces that could activate 82nd, and a memorial. The memorial came from a grant that APANO got, actually, to be able to research the history of the Canton Grill and other iconic Chinese restaurants in town. And the idea was to be able to do that research, capture that, and then provide a public monument or memorial. And so since we did this diagram, we kind of felt like the memorial actually could survive being closer to the loud side, the more public side on 82nd. So that's what that little arrow is for. And then so next, we just very deliberatively went through each program idea with APANO, brainstormed with them, and kind of felt like what their preferences were. Took some time to bring in members of the community to get their feedback, to kind of help develop this kind of menu of options that we could use to infuse the project. So some streetscape ideas that were developed for APANO, things that could just make the sidewalk and that much nicer, places to rest, landscaping, maybe having wayfinding in other languages just to be more culturally specific to the Jade District. Some ideas for the community space: make it a place where people could hang out for free, elders could gather, make it a third space, definitely protect it from the weather. This image from in the bottom right actually came from the Jade District visioning plan from 10 years ago. So that project still has mileage out here. Some other ideas for open space. Is there a way to make the plazas have cultural markers so that it looks like not just anywhere in town, but specifically for the Jade District? Some interesting opportunities to bring landscape to the site. And this isn't something you always think about with the Jade District, but we're going to have great opportunity to get views out to the mountains, the hills, nearby, just the way that it's perched up above the surrounding. So as we looked into the commercial programs, there was quite a bit of excitement to bring the food hawkers to the site. So in Portland, as you all know, we're famous for food carts. But what this would bring a different nuance and feel is the food hawker scene, like if you've ever been to Southeast Asia, so like Singapore specifically, or like Malaysia. It's just a very energetic and dynamic thing where you just have someone vending maybe like one specialty, but they just have this one area to do it. It's just a really nice feel, and that would be really cool if we could bring to the Jade District. These ideas of micro kitchens and retail accelerators, this came from APANO, not only just thinking for themselves, but how do they support the surrounding community? If somebody wants to start a business and needs a leg up, could this development have a place to help support them in that way? And then not just the function of the commercial, but what kind of formal aspects could this bring? So I'm really partial to like the eclectic signage that these restaurants were famous for, these big blade signs. And here's an image from Guangzhou, actually, just with all the signage hanging out there. I think that would be right at home in the Jade District. And this was another idea that came up. What if we just had a pavilion that could just invite vendors and people to come in, and that would serve that purpose of protecting people from the weather. There was quite a bit of like really good constructive feedback of like, you can't just design the plaza for the pleasant, sunny days, but like, what about when it's rainy and cold out? How do we create a space for people to come do that? So this is the Portland Mercado, which is pretty successful. And then once we got through that process, we finally put some schemes together that put all the different programs together. So this one, we called it a centerpiece, where it was trying to invite that public and community space into kind of an atrium or like a skylight lit space. Hawkers and more entrepreneurial spaces could kind of filter along the street edges of Clinton here, and then 82nd running up here in this kind of purpley magenta color. This is recognizing the importance of the location of the Canton Grill restaurant and how it served as a landmark. And so in this case, we're not keeping the restaurant, we're not redoing the restaurant, but adding in new columns and evoking the facade of it and bringing a place where people can learn about the history of the Canton Grill and things like that. And then in the yellow, this is kind of an unusual location of the housing urbanistically, but just reacting to the diagrams that we had before of like just how loud 82nd was. So we were exploring what it would be like to kind of push the housing closer to the residential area and just create more public space on the corner. In this scheme, this is where we introduced the open air pavilion that's flexible for the food hawkers and vendors, and maybe could have community space, creating a little bit of separation at the mid block. So this is actually about 200 feet. And then the housing would be on the southern portion of it, courtyard with great kind of like morning sun access. And yeah, so this was the two options that we had kind of midway through the project. And then we also saw an opportunity to tweak that last option. Maybe we could add in like a 2 or 3 story shop housing instead of the courtyard. So it just has a little bit more of an edge on Clinton Street. And then this frontage could possibly be a little bit more compatible with the single family residential just adjacent to it. So maybe that creating that transition from commercial to residential. And then I'm going to compress our design process down into this one slide. So we took those 2 schemes and engaged back with the friends and family of APANO, got some really good feedback. There was a lot of excitement for the public open space. There was some good feedback about maybe programming too much onto the site. And so from that, we took those 3 schemes and consolidated them down to 2 different options. So one is an L-shaped building with a pavilion, and then the other one, we kind of mixed and mashed them together, kind of like a combination meal from the old menu. And then in that time, we actually had a little bit more time to dive back into the vernacular architecture from Guangzhou. So here's an example of some Qilo architecture, which is some veranda architecture in Guangzhou and Hong Kong. And you also see some of this in Taiwan. But this type of colonnade with the walkway being protected by the building is protective against the monsoons that they get, and then just the hot sun that you have in that tropical climate. And so we felt like there might be a formal connection with the way that the facade architecture of the Canton Grill is. And so that was an opportunity that we could study in the future as we get into the architectural design. And then out here in the Northwest, which is how rainy it is, this might actually be kind of a welcome thing. Oh, some people can't see. We're doing okay?
Travis, I think you're good. Yep, I think, Neil, maybe
Great.
try closing out and rejoining. But I think the rest of us are good.
So thank you for bearing with me all the way till here. We're getting to the two schemes that we currently have. So this one we called the L plus pavilion, but then we eventually just called it the combo number one. And so in this scheme, we have an L-shaped affordable housing footprint that's on the corner of 82nd and Clinton. Some important elements, really want to have a wide sidewalk on 82nd for opportunities for nice street trees. Maybe there could be another place for like benches and more landscaping just to kind of soften up that frontage and create a little bit more buffer. Kind of sketched in the new crossings that are going to come in. I think there's going to be a signal actually to stop traffic on 82nd. So that's going to be pretty exciting and just completely change the dynamic of this intersection. And then in this scheme, this is where we have that pavilion, which the idea is that it's kind of a low cost intervention for APANO, and it can be flexible for all kinds of uses that they would have. And that space in between, we kind of coined it the hawker alley. So this is where people would come and get the only food that they could ever get in town, hopefully, and then enjoy that open space, kind of the residential amenities that would be needed for affordable housing. So we called this one the Tai Chi Plaza. Maybe there'd be a bamboo grove, children's playground, community garden tucked back here. And a little note here, maybe you could save a part of the old facade so people could come and check this out too. So here's a view looking back at this idea from 82nd and Division. So you sort of see that wider sidewalk, some of the Chilo architecture perhaps. On 82nd, or sorry, on Clinton, maybe we'd have some stoop entries and things like that. So even the residential aspects of the project could activate the street. Okay, and then out here where the existing Canton Grill restaurant is where we'd have the pavilion, and hopefully it would be bustling and full of people, full of activity. And you sort of see a note, a hint of the hawker alley that'll invite you to kind of turn the corner and go into that space. And did a little vignette of what that could look like. I think at night it would really shine, be very festive and feel like a night market. So you can go grab your food and then perhaps go out into some landscaping and have a picnic under a tree or something like that. So a little vignette of what a widened and improved 82nd frontage could be with a new FX bus. Some of the historical interpretive aspects, maybe we could make those into like bronze plaques and get those into the hardscape. We're open to all kinds of things. And if you can't tell, we're still pretty early in the design phase. So I think a lot of stuff is still on the table. Here in Old Town Chinatown, there's some really great bronze plaques that were designed by Swen Ho that are out in the sidewalk. And I think those do a really good job. Kind of an image of what the Tai Chi Plaza could be, some tables for the elders to play their chess and Chinese chess. I think community gardens have been really successful in this neighborhood. And talking with some of the residents of Orchards 82nd, they definitely want like a big children's playground and place for their kids to kick a soccer ball in a safe place and not bouncing the balls off of cars and things like that. And then the last scheme that I'll share with you, we call this one the combo number 3. And it's a much more intensive development. Instead of a pavilion, we kind of show this as a a shell space that could be affordable commercial space. Maybe a portion of it is the memorial, so you almost visit it like a museum or something like that. But there's this mid-block plaza that you would enter, kind of a big formal gate, that this kind of ties all those uses together. Here, instead of the Hawker Alley, the hawkers are tucked under the building and activating 82nd. And then what's interesting with this scheme, the L is kind of pushed to the north, and we can create like a little roof garden above the parking. So this will kind of be illustrated in this kind of view. So the higher density housing is pushed back a little bit, and then maybe you could do something lower scale that's more compatible with the residential adjacent to it. And then here's an idea where the pavilion or that affordable commercial space or even the memorial could act as like a lantern and kind of be activated at night with different art exhibits and maybe even projecting art. So this was a dragon, which I thought was cool. And I think that's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. Let's see. If folks want to add any questions to the chat, we'll go ahead and pose them back to Travis. I think Bob had one. He was asking if you could just speak a little bit about just on-street parking proposed as part of the 82nd, like just kind of maybe what the frontage plans might look like with that project.
I don't think so. I think I've seen the latest PBOT draft, and it's just 2 travel lanes and a center median. So yeah, two travel lanes each way and a center median.
Awesome. Some comments. Love the roof garden and how it can add interest to the street level. Definitely agree. You can see that in this image on the screen. Scott says he misses the days of $1.55 combo dinner. Don't we all?
I don't think I was even born yet when that was a thing.
Hey now.
There's a request. Do you mind flipping back to combo number 2 so we can take that one in?
Yeah, I might need to work on that. So we only have combo 1 and combo 3.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of an inside joke because this scheme was like a mishmash of a bunch of different things. I introduced it to the team as combo number 3 to get a couple chuckles, and then we decided to call the L Pavilion combo number 1, and the subtitle for that is Simple Tasty Dish. So this one is like nice and simple. This is kind of the most straightforward one. Combo number 3, the reason we called it combo number 3 was when Swen Ho, doing the historic research, she interviewed Fred Lewis and Cindy, her daughter, and they were talking about like what made Canton Grill such a beloved place was just the consistency. Like somebody could go to that restaurant for years and they were like, don't you ever change combo number 3. Like that's my favorite dish. That's the only thing I'm gonna order. But don't you ever change that. So that's where that kind of came from.
Very creative. I love that. We have a question from Saumya. If you could, I think you've talked a lot about kind of the master plan program, but if you could maybe hone in on kind of the development itself and just talk about, the targets for parking, types of units, quantity of units, kind of just the development program.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's still fluctuated. It's fluctuated quite a bit, and I think where we are at, um, we I I actually was hoping that we were supposed to do our community engagement last week, but then there was a what's it called, a conflict, so it's actually going to happen Thursday. So where we're at with this, we're actually going to go back out and get some more community engagement and let kind of APANO digest on this. So I think for parking, they could go with anything from 0 to I would hope not more than 20.25 parking ratio. So, and then in terms of unit count, that's also fluctuated. This site, I've laid it out, like this site could yield 200 units. There's no financing that would support 200 units right now. So in this L scheme could be anywhere from 40 to 60 units. So this tuck under parking, like 12 to 18 parking stalls, or even 20 parking stalls, that's in that like 0.25 to 0.3 ratio. That's been the challenge of like people do need the parking in this part of town. Ironically, with like the busy transit and all that, just getting to their jobs and all that different things. But as you can see in the site, it's not that big. If we provide more parking, then we lose some of the great open space amenities on the site.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. I think kind of while we're on this thread, you just talked a little bit about zoning, and I think there's the market. We hit the market before the zoning, but are there any other zoning challenges that you've come across when you've been researching this site a little bit more that have been, challenging specifically to design?
Let me think about that a little bit. So we're CM2 with a Main Street overlay, no design overlay. The CM2 is pretty straightforward. Since we're not trying to max out the site, keeping it at 45 feet tall and within the FAR. And since we're planning to do affordable housing, I think we have access to the FAR bonuses. All of that is like pretty not challenging so far. The BPS did reach out to us because in the comp plan, this site is has the potential to go up to CM3. So we are studying what it would mean to upzone to CM3. And it's one of those funny things where, because we're not doing such an intensive development, we don't need more FAR, but maybe we could go up to 65 feet tall, and that would like change some things up. Like, can you imagine like varying the heights of the buildings and things like that? That would be pretty exciting.
Awesome. Let's see, we're waiting on a couple more questions. I'm gonna throw one in
Sure.
while we're on this graphic. I want to just say I love the kind of vernacular that you've picked up on here. It's really cool to see a building that's like embracing the identity and context of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I am curious, just like from thinking about the program of a hawker style market, like who are there good examples locally of, like, would that be something a APANO would run, or kind of like a food park, food cart vendor type thing? Like, how do those work? They're a shared resource that somebody kind of holistically manages, and you rent the stall or you lease the stall.
Those are good questions. I think, yeah, either APANO would probably have to run it, being a landlord and knowing their kind of agenda. If they leased it out, it would be very, very affordable. I've even heard them talk about like not wanting to create tax burden, so I don't know if they might just like give the space away for free. I don't know. Maybe somebody on the call might know. I don't know of any food hawker examples in town. Somebody told me about Urban Hawker in New York, so New York City. And that's where we got these images from. Sorry, I'm modifying my presentation in the middle of the presentation. Faux pas. Or these might actually just be in Southeast Asia. And then this is Rockwood Market Hall.
Awesome. Still waiting on more questions, but I'm going to throw another one in, which is just, I think I'd be curious to know, is there specific engagement you guys see with the kind of restaurant owner businesses in the area? I think like making sure that they don't feel like this is competition, but creates kind of like a broader aggregate of destinations. Just as there, I guess the question is, are there like subgroups of engagement towards other restaurants to really
I think that's a
kind of
good
coordinate
idea.
everybody?
I think that's a good idea. So through so far we haven't done that specifically. But so yeah, Swen Ho was hired as the historic research fellow through APANO for their monument grant. And she's actually interviewed so Fred and Cindy with Canton Grill. She interviewed Annie Wong with Wong's King. And so there's already been a number of interviews, and I think there could be even more. Where I'm going with this is the monuments grant is so fascinating because we're talking about this project because Canton Grill closed in 2022, and the pandemic was very challenging for the restaurants out here. Ocean City closed, Wong's King closed. And then even before the pandemic, there was Chinese Village, which is north of here, closed, and that became a cash and carry. And then Li Jin was also a big banquet hall Chinese restaurant. They were torn down when PCC did their expansion. So intermixed with all of this, there is a story of like gentrification and kind of like a lost history of this stuff. So that's something that I think this project wants to be able to commemorate. But I think for this to be a sustainable and vibrant living thing, this does have to work in the network of Jade District and supporting the other businesses around town, around this district, so that they aren't competing with each other, that they can kind of survive together.
Right. Glenn has a question. He's just kind of curious if you could describe kind of the next steps on the development process. Talking about would APANO develop the site or be the landlord, kind of what are the logistics? And maybe if you could talk a little bit more about SERA's scope and kind of how far you guys will take this.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of what I'm showing you here is kind of the end of SERA's scope for this first phase of this like programming concept, sort of like quasi master plan scope. We're doing a big open house this Thursday, which you're all invited if you want to give more feedback. It's going to be at the Orchards of 82nd Space. So we're going to put that out there. APANO will be able to synthesize that feedback. And then the next phase that we're going to focus on is more specifically to the affordable housing. So that's where we're going to probably tighten up and think more about developing that part of the project, and seeing if that starts to kind of like harden the edges and give a little bit more shape, so that the other aspects like the memorial and the community spaces can find a way to kind of fit in. So yeah, I think with these two options kind of gives APANO a good range of how to orient the site moving forward.
Awesome. I'm gonna kind of combine Samia and Aaron. I apologize, I skipped over your question. Just kind of, if you could, it sounds like you have some engagement on Thursday, but up until now, just kind of what has the reception been on the two concepts, and if you could talk a little bit about like how these are being received
Yeah.
by the community.
So far it hasn't been the wider community, but it's been the friends and family of APANO. So not too small of a group, but not the big group. I know that APANO really likes this scheme just because they want to make a statement in the Jade District, and they want it to look unique, and they want it to reflect the kind of eclecticism that's out in the Jade District. If you ever pass through the Jade, like it's so bright and colorful, and every building looks different. It's a little bit like haphazard, and that's what like makes it so fun. So if you were actually to do a very elegant, pure geometry building, it wouldn't fit here at all. So when I showed this, they're like, this looks like any building in Portland. We don't want that. And so I was like, okay, noted. But they loved this idea of the Hawker Alley. It was like, that's how I envision the public space operating out here. So I think there's little bits and pieces that we'll be able to pull from each, hopefully.
Gail just wanted to note, really excited. Gail was part of the MERP project team that helped APANO find potential community garden sites across this corner of the city. I was really excited to just see a lot of green community garden spaces being included.
Oh yeah, then I stole your
hopefully-
idea, Gil.
Kudos. So we got about 5 minutes left if other folks have some questions while we have Travis. I can keep filling in with my own questions. I think one of the things that really struck me every time I travel to Asia, there is this prevalence of night markets.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I kind of met with colleagues and talked to folks, I realized that there's not really a huge kitchen in most apartments in Japan, in South Korea, in China. And so I kind of wondered, like, is there different ways that you're thinking about the interior of the building and the units? Is it smaller kitchens and just this like different model of kind of eating more readily available meals that are available downstairs? I don't know. It's just there something like
that is really
kind of
interesting, because I think
authentic.
that gives you the opportunity when you do your housing design to be culturally specific. And in order to do that, you would have to know your target population and all that is. But it's interesting, like I would almost go the opposite way, because I think like my own background, like my parents are Vietnamese. And so one of the most fun things about eating together when you have relatives or friends coming together, you actually need a big table to like put salad rolls together. Or like even if you have pho, like you have a giant platter of all your herbs and everything. So like the really tiny micro stuff that like you see in apartments around, like that's actually not going to serve our community. And the way that we cook our food, we need a big vent to like suck all that stuff out. So there's quite a bit of specific kitchen design and housing design that could be a big opportunity to make it unique. But then with the night markets and all that is this like cultural, social aspect of it is very different from here. Like in Asia, there's much more communal space, and like this idea that you go out into the public and you mingle with everybody in the night market and everything. Whereas here, generalizing to like the American mentality, like you get in your car, you get on the freeway, you go somewhere, maybe you pick something up from the grocery store, go through a drive-through. It's very different. So it is a good observation.
All right, I'm gonna pose, Dave Addy's got a question. Do you know just kind of funding sources that are possible to make this a reality? What's on
So-
APANO's radar?
Yeah, so for the affordable housing aspect, definitely the OHCS, like low income housing tax credits. I think there's an eye on like PSEF, and yeah, I think one thing that's really awesome about APANO is they're very good at capital campaigns. So when they built their own office, I think they funded it, a lot of it themselves. So I'm excited for that, and I'm rooting for them because I think it would be, yeah, lovely to do like an amazing statement project out here for them.
Awesome. Well, Travis, we are running up on the hour. I want to thank you so much for sharing this work with us. It's really, really fun to see your evolution and for sharing it with us. I want to say that we are still working on the presentation topic for next month, but stay tuned. I promise we'll get it squared away here very soon. And Kathy just reminded us in the chat, this presentation is eligible for an AICP credit, so please take advantage of that. And with that, Travis, good luck with your engagement on Thursday, and we look forward to seeing the evolution of this. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody attending.
Can I make a last plug?
Yeah, please.
Let's see. Saturday, August 10th is the Jade Night Market at PCC Southeast. Definitely should go check it out.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
All right. Bye all. Enjoy your afternoon.
Yeah.
See you next month.
Thanks.